decided by the majority of the commission that at this time, not to recommend increasing the FAR, but that in order to have a better understanding of how it would affect the town as a whole, that we do a deeper dive into the R2 zone and better understand it as a whole, things that may need to change in the R2 zone, maybe not, but to do a more detailed look at it. So that's been set for early in the calendar year 24 in order to get some other things off our plate so that we can look at that and assess that. Another thing in the same reference that was brought up was a complaint by some that some of the, I'll call them undersized lots that exist in town that are maybe half-size lots. They have a 25-foot frontage. One of the requests was to increase the FAR in order to be able to build on those lots. But the FAR is not the only thing that governs that, and there is a minimum frontage requirement in the town for a lot in order to build is a minimum 50-foot frontage. So changing the FAR would not change the ability to build on those lots. So if folks if specifically builders or private owners have multiple of these lots that are adjoining, they can always combine them and they can build that. So again, we'll do a deeper dive later on, and maybe the decision will change. I don't know.
So I would just suggest, because, and you, I know you know this already because you saw all this in the emails I saw, that there obviously should have a lot of public engagement
Absolutely.
on this, because I think people are gonna be expecting that. And so in anticipation of that, when we run that process, I think similar to the STR process, which you did do an enormous amount of public engagement about, for good or bad, or however, I don't know, however people feel about that. At least there was, I felt like a real concerted effort.
Agreed. And to your comment about social media, I would encourage residents and anyone who has a business in town that might be affected by it to please come to the planning commission meetings, make your comments directly at the planning commission meetings, or email the planning commission directly so that you can get qualified comment on it. I know that I've seen some of the comments and some of the input that was provided on social media, and it clearly came from an ill-informed source. So go to the horse's mouth, get it directly from the people that are involved. And I know that any of the members of the planning commission, if you ask them, if they don't know the answer directly, they will get that information and get it to you.
Great, thank you. And to just like to use this moment to maybe put something else on the planning commission's radar is I happen to notice in C1 that bookstores require conditional use permit. And I think it's an error. I think what happened is that it used to say adult bookstores, because I was on the planning commission and had a conversation about adult bookstores. It was an uncomfortable conversation to have in public. And I think somehow the word adult got pulled off of it in one of the versions. And also service establishments are both in by right use and in conditional use, both. So that's very confusing. So I would
say the easiest way to do that is to put that on our agenda, is to direct us to take a look at that, and we can, and it's certainly something that we can do.
Don, I know you went straight to the code. Did you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't disagree. Bookstores are typically permitted use in the communities I'm familiar with. I think that perhaps one of the items that we can add to the planning commission agenda is to go through the permitted conditional uses for all of the zoning classifications. And that way we have an opportunity to really look broadly at, and as well as in detail of all the uses that we feel worthy of having a conditional use permit, because they may have primary or secondary impacts that we want to mitigate versus those like common bookstore that we have.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. But I'll also just say about maybe also keeping an eye out for medical, because I think medical is something as a town and a community we are trying to attract in any format that it may come, which could be a very small doctor's office or something else, and that seems to also be lacking in that So, but I, give it to council to see if that is something that should be added to the work plan or not. To bring that point.
So do you,
I think
Would
to
you like
Mr.
a
Bowie's
motion?
point, like looking at the permitted first conditional aspects.
I think we can certainly add that as, with the commission's agreement to the work plan, something we can do next year.
I think if you want it done, in
Yeah,
a more
next-
timely fashion, then having it as something that's directed, bumps it up in the schedule, but if it's not a critical item, we can just include it in our, work plan that we have, that we update on a regular basis.
I'm gonna open this up to council discussion.
I would suggest that you take a look at the permitted and conditional uses in the C1 zone in particular, just because we are recruiting businesses trying, downtown, which is, for me, it's like Washington Avenue, Colonial Avenue, all of that downtown area. And I would hate to see somebody not try to put a bookstore in because they've got to go through a CUP process, which is the way it's written now. So maybe a quick read to look at obvious issues sooner than later. I'll let
I'm
anybody
looking at
else
this
chime
side,
in.
my other side of the table here.
Yeah, how onerous would that be, Mr. Mack? You guys have plenty on your plate.
We do have a decent amount on our plate, but I think just a review of the C1, just to review what's by right and what's conditional, and decide if maybe there's something in the conditional that should be by right. I think we could potentially get that done in a session. Would that require a public
It
hearing?
would require a public hearing.
So we could probably get that done in a session and then set up a public hearing. So that's a thing that should have a pretty quick turnaround.
So that's our answer to it.
Okay.
If we're doing if we're just doing a simple review of should these conditional things be by right, that should be a light lift.
Nothing's a light lift, Mr. Mayor.
That's why I say should.
Should have would have.
Mr. Williams, how do you feel?
That's fine with me.
Would you get some input from EDC for them too on that? Good, okay, consensus, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, great. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So-
Karen, for bringing that forward, that was a good opportunity.
The only other thing that I would ask is they're having their public hearing on the 9th, and then they will vote on these two text amendments. Is there any advantage for us doing a joint public hearing?
I think they probably already advertised it.
I haven't advertised it, I can pull it, but I did advertise it, to the paper today.
It's okay, just, I don't know of books
Or,
where that's
excuse me, it'll go to the
coming in.
paper, it'll go to the paper next week.
In other words, I don't know that after they have their public hearing and vote, and then we have to advertise, that's another month's delay. Is there any way to go ahead and advertise, or do we have to wait until they voted?
The commission hasn't made a determination on the action, they have to make a recommendation to the council. The council and the town attorney can weigh in. The planning commission could make its recommendation perhaps the same night, and the council could act upon it the same night.
When you had a joint meeting, you could do that. Is that what you?
If you're looking to expedite it.
For what exactly?
The
For the cup?
STR and the, not the
No,
SDR, the
it's-
cup and
And
the
the site
site plan.
plan.
Oh, do you wanna have a joint meeting for that?
We can-
Staff's not asking for it, we're just responding back to the council's desires.
Are we in a hair on fire situation?
Are we on a hair on fire situation?
I don't know, Mr. Dooley, do we have a problem with outstanding projects that are waiting for changes in the cup or the site plan?
I think that at this point, we're on schedule to come back in front of the council on this issue, probably in December for both the conditional use permit and site plan recommendations from the planning commission. I'm not personally aware of anything that's immediately a need to be resolved.
Let's set the public hearings for the work session in December. Does that sound good?
Yeah, if they refer it to us
In
at our
November.
regular meeting in November, then we could, does that give us enough
So public
time?
hearings at work session in
Work
December.
session in December.
Yeah, we can certainly bring it, assuming that the commission takes action, on November 9th, we could bring it back to the second meeting of, November for the council, and then hold public hearing in December.
Now, I just know with holidays and stuff coming up, and we do have a very active economic development group now, and I don't want to lose potential businesses to town.
I'm looking at my calendar. Can we hold the council public hearing at the regular meeting in November?
That's what I was going to recommend, that I could
Let's do that.
advertise for the regular meeting.
That sounds good. And then the very next day, I'm flying to Boulder, Colorado. I know, but.
I wanna go.
So it would come back to the council then at their meeting on the
15.
15th.
15.
Okay,
Yeah, that can,
sounds good.
Thank you.
Everybody good with that? I'm seeing head nodding, I'm looking at, people looking at calendars. Yes, good, okay. All right, let's move forward. Halloween proclamation. I know, I love this one. This is one of my favorite ones. Whereas the town of Colonial Beach encourages both young and old to participate in the longstanding tradition of Halloween trick-or-treating. And whereas on October 31st, children dressed in costumes will emerge from their hiding to ring the doorbell